congrats.
Everything's fine.
Is she in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Colorado? Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We can see the audience. Yes, we can see the audience. It's wonderful. Masks optional. It's a great start for the day. How do I feel? Okay. Good morning, everybody. We'll call the May 26th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. First off, we will have the pledge with Commissioner Markey. Please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Got some folks coming in. Well, before we get going here, we have some wonderful supporters coming in here. John, you're gonna recognize them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Parents, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, the supporters.
What about with white jackets again?
Okay, I'd like to recognize we've got our ambassadors are back here today, and it's great to see them. Colonel Mike Gotro, Dennis Hepburn, Dr. Max King, great to see you. Bob Sox, Tom Vanny, thank you. Jim Handley, Mac McLeod, as always. And last but certainly not least, Captain Ed Laney. Thanks. A couple weeks ago, we celebrated number 96 for the legend. It was great. Okay, getting on with the agenda. I'm asking for a motion to
So
approve.
moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the 28th April meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Okay, without further ado, because this is really the show today, is the CEO report, the update. So much going on, and we're happy to let the public hear about it, John.
Morning, everyone. You notice we didn't have any special presentation today. That's because you got me in about 42 slides. So, no, it's great to be here. You know, I've been coming up here for the last 14 months and haven't had anything positive to say, but today I'd just like to go to my next slide and say it's starting. We're getting back in business, and it's taken way too long. And you can see some of these pictures, they're all been taken in the last year, and I'm really excited to start laying out the roadmap that we have for the next couple of months. It's still very dynamic and fluid, and we are making changes every day depending on the conditions. So let me roll right into it. And I'm going to give a little bit of history, and then some of the things that have happened in the last month, some of the hurdles that we're having to overcome, and where we are with our various cruise line partners, and what the next steps are going to be. So, as we reported at the last meeting, there's five phases. They call it 4 phases, but there's a 2A and 2B, so it's really a 5-step process. CDC issued guidance on April 2nd to enter phase 2A. The reason it took so long between phase 1 and phase 2A allegedly was because the testing machine equipment, the equipment for testing that had to be placed on board the ships was in short supply, and it took the ships that long to comply. In any event, April 2nd, they issued the first updates for Phase 2A. Multiple updates and explanatory letters followed. Since then, it's a very dynamic process. It's continuously evolving as the CDC changes things for the general public. They have to go back and change it for the cruise lines because they can't have conflicting guidance out there. So it's a moving target. On May 5th, they issued the guidance to enter Phase 2B. That section in 2B allows two ways to get restarted. The first requires simulated sailings, ship by ship, port by port, with CDC oversight and monitoring. Alternatively, a cruise line may opt for 98% crew and 95% passenger vaccination requirement to begin sailing. Those two numbers, 98%, 95%, we don't know where they came from, but they're numbers out there. Surely there's some science behind them. The good news is there's a way forward, and that's what we're working on right now. These are the 5 phases. I blew them up on this slide just so everybody could see it. The first one was conduct screening, testing, all of that for crew members on board. The second phase is voyage preparation. That involves the routine screening of testing, port, medical, and housing agreements. There's a lot of work in 2A that the cruise lines had to do. Most of what we had to do, we already had in place. It was pretty easy just to mesh it with the cruise lines, but we had to do this jointly to create a document that could be filed with the CDC for them to issue permission to proceed to Phase 2. Phase 2 is to request permission from the CDC to conduct simulated trial voyages with volunteer passengers, no revenue customers on board, and have to do one or more of those before they get a complete certification to move to Phase 3, which is meeting their standards for protection crew and an application to do restricted sailing. So it's a multi-step process. We're into Phase 2B right now, which is a good thing. This slide we can make available to anybody that wants to look at it in more detail, but it's a very regimented process, and we're making our way through it. So the port agreement is required between each port authority, each cruise line, and the local health authority. The Department of Health, State of Florida, issued a letter and will not sign the agreements, but supports a return to cruise. The reason they won't sign the letters is the state of Florida, which I'll touch upon in the later slide, has a lawsuit against the CDC, and acknowledging this letter would sort of condone that they agree with the return to sail order, which they do not. So they've sent us a letter that says they will not be signing agreements, which is fine. That letter is meeting the requirements for the CDC, and that we've involved the health department, so we're okay. They've accepted that. Our portion of the agreement is all procedural. In other ports, they down south in particular, they made it a much more convoluted arrangement where it requires board approval, etc. This is nothing more than an operational document. It's very procedural. What you do if this happens, what you do if that happens, and it defines what happens if there's a case on a ship, or what happens if you bring a ship in, and how you move the passengers and crew, etc. So we did it that way because it allows us the flexibility to accommodate CDC changes, which are daily. They had new changes last night, even on crew embarkations on their website that was updated last evening. So it's a very, very dynamic process right now, which is good because the needle is moving in the right direction. It says here we have 3 agreements completed and submitted to CDC for approval. We have got 4 agreements will be submitted by the end of this, probably by the end of the day today. I mean, we're really moving this pretty quickly, so we're all excited. And stop me if there's any questions along the way, because I'm going through a lot of slides pretty quickly. The port agreement overview. It defines the cruise line's responsibility, which is to have healthcare, transportation, housing agreements. Every cruise line has to have an agreement with a hospital, has to have an agreement with transportation companies to move people that might be sick to a hospital, and housing agreements if somebody has to be quarantined ashore. So they've been working all of these deals independently. You know, the embark and debark guidelines, you know, social distance, all of that stuff still applies when you're getting on a cruise ship. So while the rest of society is, you know, starting to get back to normal, they're not there yet with the CDC guidelines. They will get there. It's just going to take time. So we're working through the requirements, and as I say, it changes every day. COVID monitoring management response plans for the ships and shoreside, and then onboard and shoreside personnel vaccination plan. That's the cruise line's responsibility. On the port side, we had to develop a worst case scenario risk analysis. And just briefly, we said, okay, let's start with the worst case. Instead of trying to figure out what each cruise line is going to have in the port, that would be a lot of work because we don't know who's bringing what ship at this point. So he said, what if we had 6 ships, all Oasis-sized class ships with full capacity in the port at the same time, and let's use the CDC numbers and figure out what the worst case scenario would be, given the timeline of when the ships sail, 3-day cruises, 4-day cruises, 7-day cruises. And in our worst case scenario, we came up with 1.7 people might require hospitalization. So that's on 6 Oasis class ships, which is impossible because there aren't 6 of them in the world. So with that basis, we made our application that any scenario in Port Canaveral is good, because most of the ships would be smaller. Yes, sir.
Before you leave this slide, could you underscore on the cruise line's responsibility, the COVID monitoring and management response plans? Again, they're going to have the ability to take care of somebody if by some chance someone happens to come down.
I didn't elaborate enough on phase 1. What that involved is getting testing equipment. They have PCR testing on board the ships. They have isolation units. They've had to really create an environment on board with additional medical people, et cetera, to handle any incident that occurs on board that ship. They can handle it on the ship.
Thank you.
Something they did not have when the crisis first erupted a year ago. So they're all ready. There are still cases that pop up. Most of the mariners in the world are not vaccinated, so they're still dealing with COVID cases. I'm going to touch on what the great things we're doing in the next couple of slides, but it's still an issue, and it's how you manage it is what that's all about. It's managing and protocol and risk assessment. We have to have COVID guidelines for port infrastructure and operations, most of which we already had. And then vaccination of port employees and supporting businesses. Cruise lines are urgently working to secure vaccines for crew members, which leads me to our next slide. This is a very important slide.
John?
Yes.
Can you go back to the worst case risk analysis
Sure.
just quickly? I don't think you covered that. You did say CDC numbers, but you didn't say that none of those passengers were considered vaccinated. So,
oh, no, you're absolutely right. When I came up with that 1.7 number, that was a 0 vaccination case analysis.
And I think you're going to go into this in your next slide, but our governor keeps saying, look at the numbers, look at the data, let's open Florida. And I think this is a perfect example of, you look at the worst case scenario with 6 cruise ships, and we have 1.7 individuals that may require some type of medical hospitalization. So,
and I could opine on this for hours, but the way this all works is the crew member or the passengers are all tested before they get on the ship under the scenario. It's not an antigen test, it's a PCR test, which has got a much higher accuracy rate than antigen. You go to the CDC numbers, and if somebody did slip through the cracks and they were infected before they get on the ship, how many days before they would show symptoms? The average is 5 days. So if you're on a 3- and 4-day cruise, nobody's going to get sick, right? Okay. So that's pretty simple. If you're going on a 7-day cruise, somebody starts to show symptoms in 2 or 3 days, and you have a problem on the ship, you're not going to be out 7 days. You're turning around and going back. So then it's just a simple factor of using their methodology to say, okay, how much would be the spread over a 3 to 5 day period? And at the end of the day, the data point from showing symptoms to requiring hospitalization is another 5 or 6 days. So when you put all that together on a normal short length cruise that we would have out of Port Canaveral, you're not going to have any issues that would require a massive evacuation to a hospital. And that was what the analysis proved, and we used their science to prove it. So we have been advocating, and I may have mentioned at last month's meeting, that we've been advocating the governor's office to help us vaccinate crew members, because that's one of the big keys to getting restarted is having vaccinated crews on these ships. Most of the cruises, you are well aware, are from international locations. Most of them aren't in vaccine-rich countries, and we are. And as soon as it became obvious that we had surpluses in Florida, we were pushing the governor's office in a very positive way to help us get these ships vaccinated. And on April 29th, the governor's Surgeon General issued a public health advisory that expanded vaccine eligibility to include individuals in Florida for the purpose of providing goods or services for the benefit of residents and visitors. That was the green light. The next day, we vaccinated our first ship on April 30th. On May 10th, I mentioned last month, we were standing up our own pod for transportation workers, partners, anybody that's involved in our cruise industry to come to Port Canaveral, and pod is a point of distribution, just for so you know what an acronym is. So we operated a drive-through clinic at CT1. It was run by CPA, Parish Healthcare, and Canaveral Fire Rescue. Same day, Victory Casino Cruises was doing their second dose. They ran a pod about a month prior, 4 weeks prior, of Moderna at Victory Cruise Terminal, and that dose was, the second dose was administered, as well as a few first doses at Cruise Terminal 2. On that day also, the state of Florida, in full support of the public health advisory, has stood up pods at all of the major seaports, 5 major seaports in Florida. And we're one of those, and we had the Florida Division of Emergency Management walk-in pod set up here at the Maritime Center. We had a lackluster result in our drive-through clinic of fewer than 60 vaccinations in a full day. The demand is clearly down. What I can tell you is that demand is 120% on every one of these ships that comes in. There's not a single mariner that's getting off that ship that doesn't want that vaccine. And I'm going to show you.
John, you may have mentioned that. About how many were vaccinated during with these programs?
I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Next slide. So we have some of our folks here today. We've got Parish Healthcare and some representatives from Parish and from the Florida Division of Emergency Management. They came in, they're in the back. These are the folks that are making this happen for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Parish has been helping us with the ships, and the Division of Emergency Management folks have been helping us with the ships and the clinic. Now, the clinic is right behind that wall. Anybody in here hasn't had a shot, I expect you to walk back there when you're done. You'll get your shot. They have Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. No appointment necessary. They'll be here until June 18th, maybe a little longer. We've requested an extension, and hopefully we'll get that. And they're assisting with crew vaccinations for cargo and crew vessels, and anybody walking in off the street. And if you get a shot, you get this really cool sticker. It says, "I got stuck at Port Canaveral." Okay, not stuck in traffic, stuck with a needle. So we're really excited about that. I'd like to highlight these pictures here. This is the drive-in clinic on the top left. On the right, that was the first cargo ship we vaccinated, and all those guys are wearing masks, but you can see the smiles in their eyes, and every one of them is gripping that shot card that they received. So it really means a lot to the mariners, and we're really excited that we can do this right now. So the vaccine clinics also fulfill one of our obligations for education vaccination under the CDC guidelines for returning to cruise. There's a couple of bullets here that give you a little bit more detail, but it's really important that we educate travelers about the importance. It's a messaging campaign, and port authorities and ship operators they're recommended to hold clinics, and we're doing that and more here at Port Canaveral. So far, we've done 9 cargo and cruise ships vaccinated. We've got 9 additional cruise ships scheduled for vaccinations through early July, and that number is likely to increase. So far, we've done, or we will be doing between now and July, we've done about 2,500 vaccines already. We got another 5,000 to go. And for those tracking the numbers, we're kind of bumping the numbers up for the county just because we're getting a lot of shots in people's arms on a weekly basis. So it's good overall. I just want to play this short video. I think it says it all.
Welcome to Port Canaveral. This is our first step in return to cruising. Today we have the Carnival Liberty with 109 crew members on board getting vaccinated. Tomorrow we get the Carnival Freedom. We'll start the same procedures all over again. And then we'll start rolling cruise ships in for the next couple of weeks. We'll start with Royal again next week. It is awesome. I mean, driving to work today when you saw the whale tail on board the Carnival ship tied up to one of our terminals, it seems like forever since we've seen cruise ships here. And it's our first step to get back to work. I mean, both for us, everybody who's in the area, whether you run a hotel, a restaurant, you support the embarkation staff, all of our laborers, security, you name it. I mean, we're excited, we're ready to get going. In addition to the cruise lines, we're also doing all the cargo crews that are here that we can get and get them over. And we had a Filipino crew just 2 days ago, we got them to do a vaccination, and they were just ecstatic because there's no one else who would out there to do it when they're at sea. We got them in here, we brought them over, smiling faces all around. And same thing, you saw these guys here doing the wave. I mean, they're just as anxious to get back to cruising as we are. So the response has been outstanding. I can't thank Parish Healthcare enough. They've been real partners in this whole endeavor. And we can vaccinate the crew members who help us in order to support tourism in Florida. And all the crew members on all the cruise ships have a huge impact, as you know, moving forward. So we can't thank Governor DeSantis enough for allowing us to do that. We're here, we're marching them through, we'll be here as long as necessary. Get every cruise ship in here that wants to get in here and get their crews vaccinated. Like I said, we're here, we're ready, and it's a good day in Port Canaveral.
Again, I want to personally thank you guys for helping us with this. Parish Healthcare, Florida Division of Emergency Management, and of course the Port Canaveral team for making these vaccinations happen. And I'll throw a number out there for you guys that I think is interesting. We had a ship in here a week or so, it was about a week ago. Seems like time is just running together now, but it was about a week ago. We did 965 vaccinations between 8 and 4.
Wow.
One day. So it was a great day, great outturn, and again, thank you guys for everything you're doing. I really appreciate it, as do the mariners on these ships. So, moving on. So what's that all mean? Well, we're going to be starting sometime in mid to late summer. There have been a lot of announcements already about cruise lines getting started in other states. They're really trying to get the Alaskan season part of it in. So there's been several announcements in the last week about lines starting out of Seattle. They're running 100% vaccinated ships, crew members and passengers, and it's a very short season anyway, and when they start in July, they've really only got about 6 weeks and the season's over. It is one of the most lucrative lanes for the cruise line, so it's a great way for them to get started and get a good cash injection to get rolling, and there's a lot of pent-up demand for Alaskan cruises. And the great thing about the Alaskan cruises, even getting a short season in, is that state is more dependent than the state of Florida on cruise industry, and it's great that they're finally getting some business back, so those communities aren't going to suffer 2 years without any tourist income. So really happy to see that get started. The other starts are Carnival has announced 2 ships out of Galveston. Don't have dates exactly. I don't think we have dates yet, and 1 out of Miami. All of the cruise lines are ready to get started, but it's first they got to finalize port agreements, and then they're subject to review by the CDC. I will say that it came out last night's news that Royal Caribbean filed their application for Miami. Ours has already been filed as well, but they did hear yesterday that the Miami application was approved by the CDC, and it turned in like 24 or 36 hours, so it went pretty quick. So we're optimistic that we're going to start getting some approvals this week, and then we'll start putting some ships on the map, and it's great. We're just excited to get started. The big hurdle, long pole in the tent, of course, is ship staffing and training. And you think about a cruise ship and you go on the shows and entertainment, hotel services. None of those people are on the ships. If they're on CDC's list to sail out of the United States, until you get your approval for these port agreements and all, they can't beef up the staffing on those ships. So it's making it very difficult to have the entertainment services and all trained and ready to go. So some of those are being done shoreside, and they'll eventually be put on the vessels. But a lot of the crews coming in from hot spots like India, Indonesia, Philippines. I think the cruise lines, I'm not sure if Brazil's back on or not, but they shut Brazil down months ago for crew members. And it's just because of the hot spots of COVID in different parts of the world. The travel restrictions and all make it near impossible to get crew members moved. So it's a big challenge for them, and they're trying to get as many people in as they can now and get the approvals to start staffing up the ships. But that is the big challenge. Revenues, passenger sailings will only occur after successful simulated sailings. So that's coming. First simulated sailing in Miami is scheduled for the latter part of June. So
How many practice sailings do we have to have before we actually paying customers?
It's a very simple. Do you pass the test or not? If you don't pass the test, you take it again and again and again until you get it right. So the CDC is the principal, I guess, on this, and they're going to look at it, and hopefully you can do 1 test cruise and you're good to go.
So
I
it
think it's
it may be once, it may be 3 times, we just don't know.
6 months ago, I'd have said 3 times. Now I'm saying maybe once. I think the ball is moving in the right direction as a society in the States right now. Everybody's moving ahead. And I think right now that the test cruises, I could even predict that maybe they get started and halfway through 5 or 6 ships sail, and that checks the box that we can move on without them. So remember I said that if you have 100% or 95% vaccinated passengers and 98% vaccinated crew members, you don't have to do a simulated sailing. One cruise line, Norwegian Cruise Line, said they're going to do that, and there's a debate between them and a couple of state governments now, including ours, about requiring vaccines to go on their ship. But that's how they run their business, and I understand that. And one of the things that we all need to consider is that when a ship departs the United States, it's in international waters, it's an international asset, and it's going to another country which may have totally different requirements than our country. So if you're going to the UK right now, you're not going to bring a ship into the UK unless you are vaccinated. So it's really a requirement of where you're going, not necessarily the cruise line saying that's how I want to run my ship. So it's a complicated formula, but we're going to get through it every day.
John, on the simulated voyages, is staff from CDC going to be there to make sure that they do the things?
According to CDC, they can monitor it remotely and directly. They may have staff on board watching to make sure you didn't put your mask on when you get out of the swimming pool. So bad, going to do another simulated cruise now until you get it right. So they have that authority in their return to cruise order. So
otherwise, they'll have cameras all over the vessel and can see everything that goes on.
Absolutely, and that's the intention, that they want to make sure you're doing everything you say you're doing. And these agreements are very, very elaborate. So we've told what we do with our own people. The cruise lines, one of the agreements I can tell you was 103 pages long. They got filed last week. So there's a lot of detail in here. So, but I think as long as the cruise lines do what they say they're going to do, I don't see any issue, and it's in their best interest to do what they say they're going to do. They want people to have a good, healthy, safe experience on their ships, and they put a lot of money and invested a lot to make this happen. And I think once it gets started, I always said it was going to turn up with a light, like a dimmer switch. It's going to be a dimmer switch, but it might be turning a little faster because we've got so many people vaccinated in the United States now, and the whole situation has evolved to a point that I think it's going to come back faster than I would have originally predicted. So,
To underscore, you still have all the same people without their jobs here in the United States waiting to get back to work. I mean, that pressure only gets more, should only grow to, again, allow this to move forward.
yes, yeah. And I can't say enough about Governor DeSantis and all the support he's been giving the industry here lately. And his goal is to get cruising started again, and he's been very, very supportive. And we wouldn't be running these vaccination clinics like we are if it wasn't for his support. So, and that's a key component to getting started. Even if the passengers aren't all vaccinated, I can tell you the cruise lines are going to have every crew member vaccinated that they can get vaccinated. It takes a big headache. And one of the things I will share, and it's another detail that was issued within the CDC guidelines. It popped up on a Friday night, but they changed it with the crew vaccinations, that if you have a vaccinated crew member, well, let me back up. The rules are that when you bring a crew member on a ship, a new crew member, replacement crew member, somebody new's coming on board, they have to have a PCR test, and then they have to be isolated for 2 weeks in quarantine before they can turn to in their job. They have to make sure they don't have anything bringing on board the ship. So that's just the way that works. But the CDC made a change on a Friday night that allows vaccinated crew members to come on the ship. Testing is optional, and quarantine is not required. So crew members can come on and go right to work. So one of the key components to getting as many people vaccinated as we can right now is, the ships are mobile, they can go different places, so can the crew members. So if we've got 900 crew members, for example, vaccinated on one ship, that might supply 2 smaller ships down the road. So when they can start moving the crew members back and forth, it gives the cruise lines tremendous flexibility in getting their ship staffed. So just because we get one ship and it's fully vaccinated and there's more people on that one than another one, that doesn't mean those are the same people that are going to stay with that ship. They move them back and forth quite a bit, and this gives them great flexibility to have as many of them vaccinated as possible. So A lot of moving parts here. So we got some new business announcements that were made. The Norwegian Prima, it's a Leonardo class ship. That's the one on the top right. Debuts in August 22. The inaugural call at Port Canaveral will be on December 11th, 2022, and she will be here for the winter season next year. And it's a brand new ship, and the first brand new ship I think that Norwegians placed in Port Canaveral might be the first ever. But if there was another one, I'm not aware of it. But it's really exciting. It's their latest class. It's going to be slightly smaller than some of their bigger ships, but it's an interesting design, and we're really excited to be the first home port for this vessel in the United States. Disney Wish also has got their inaugural call from Port Canaveral on June 9th. Year-round home port with 3 and 4 day voyages. It's the first of the 3 Triton-class vessels to be delivered, and another highlight is that ship is also LNG powered. So, we're getting closer and closer to these deliveries, and so we're excited that the cruise lines are at least, not at least, but are giving Port Canaveral this favorable new tonnage coming into the market. So, good news. The Mardi Gras, you've seen there's a little video of her there. She is scheduled to arrive here on June 4th. Details are still to be determined and published, and we'll publish them on our website. We're working with Carnival very closely. There'll be no ship or terminal tours at this point, and there won't be any by next Friday either. We'll have a traffic management plan because we expect there'll be a lot of people that want to drive by and see the ship. And because it's down at Cruise Terminal 3, it's going to be, a dead-end traffic zone down there. So we're going to have some sort of a traffic management plan so we don't create problems down there for the boat ramps and Jetty Park and everybody else is just driving by to take a look. The park will be open. Capacity will be limited by number of parking spaces that we have there. That's generally the driving factor. And if somebody walks in after that, that's okay. But we do have parking capacity limits in Jetty Park. And only boat and trailer parking at Freddie Patrick boat ramps. Nobody's coming out there to park and look at the ship. So we're going to maintain that space for our boating community. And Peter will be putting together some plans and putting that out on our website soon. So you've read in the paper the Florida lawsuit. On April 8th, Attorney General Ashley Moody filed lawsuit against the CDC, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the White House administration. A few days later, on April 22nd, she filed an injunction for immediate relief from the CDC's conditional sale order. And as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, that the reason they wouldn't sign the health document as a 3-party agreement is because they are suing against the conditional sale order, and it would have been a conflict for them. And I fully understand that. I think the CDC understands it as well. The argument is that the CDC does not have the power to enforce long-term restrictions that they've imposed with the conditional sale order, and also calls the CDC's order a violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. There was a hearing on the preliminary injunction, U.S. District Court, Middle District, Tampa, on May 12th. Caitlin Lewis and I both attended that hearing. We were the only cruise port in attendance, and I think there were a total of 10 people, and 4 of them were media and a couple of interested bystanders, and that was about it. It was a very interesting hearing. Judge Stephen Meriday was the presiding judge. A few days later, he issued an order on May 18th and referred the action to mediation. Notice of mediation was filed on May 20th by the state of Florida, and it will be occurring tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's a closed mediation, so there'll be no public viewing or interest in that mediation at all. By order of the court, the parties must mediate by June 1st. So this is on a fast track. Depending on the outcome here, it could have an impact on the last 30 minutes of my presentation. So we'll just have to see. Excuse me. So that will be occurring. So some people are going to be working hard over the Memorial Day weekend, it appears. Any more questions on cruise? It's a good opportunity. A lot going on. We've had more going on in the last 3 weeks, just getting these documents filed and done than the last 14 months for the cruise business. It's great to see everybody getting back at it again, and all the cruise lines are enthusiastic. And the funny thing, and it's not funny, but after 14 months, we're dealing with all different people on the cruise line sides. There's a few people that have been there before, but there's a lot of new faces, and it's definitely different. It's like learning everything all over again. So
On the Norwegian ship, what kind of voyages are they gonna have? What timeline?
Well,
Or do you know?
yeah, they're gonna do some voyages. They're gonna sail out of some of the Caribbean ports, and it's just gonna be normal rotations in the Caribbean. A lot of the activity for most of the cruise lines is in Europe, which is normal this time of year. Normally in the summer season, we don't feel it as much because we're a family market, which is more of a year-round market. But Miami and Port Everglades are, I call them adult markets and seasonal markets, and they get a lot of fly-in people from the winter months that take a cruise to the Caribbean, and they come in from up north in the U.S., Canada, Europe, South America. A lot of people that's very seasonal. So during the summer, a lot of those ships go to the Mediterranean, they go to Asia, they go to North Europe, Alaska, and trade in other areas for the summer, and then they come back in the winter. We get some of those. We get a lot of port calls on those ships that are going somewhere else when they're on their way out of Miami. They'll sometimes stop by Port Canaveral before they leave, or vice versa. When they're coming back, they'll stop by Port Canaveral before they go into service in Miami. So it's
But are they gonna have 3 and 4 day cruises, 7-day cruises?
I believe they're doing 3 and 4 and 7. I think they're doing all of them. It's hard to keep up with them right now because everybody's offering a different product and scrambling to figure out which ship fits the best purpose to get started, and it's, you know, which ship is crewed and ready to go. So.
And are they 50% occupancy on these trial cruises, or how are they operating?
I don't remember the occupancy rate. I think that's established by the cruise line, but it's not 100%. And it's got to be a minimum on the trial cruises. It has to be a minimum of 10%. So they've got to have a reasonable number of people on board, and they have to offer all of the services that they would offer under normal conditions. So if there's a theater presentation, then they've got to put people in the theater, and if they're required to maintain social distancing in the theater, they got to make sure that it's all working that way. And it's going to be a process, but nothing that the industry can't handle at this point just to get back running again.
So, see, to kind of underscore that, the long pole and the tent, not on our side. We're ready, whether it's security, whether it's transportation, whatever it may be. It's on the ship side, and it's on the ship's crew getting that up and running. That's really the
That
challenge.
is the long pole in the tent.
And everything
getting those
what
crews
we're doing
vaccinated
here is to facilitate that as best we can, which is, good.
That's what we've been doing, and it's great to be able to do that. And like I say, I appreciate the partnership we have to make that happen. One of our challenges that I didn't mention is that when we started doing the crew vaccinations, we some lines want Pfizer, some want Moderna, some want J&J. J&J is easy for crew members because it's one and done, and the cargo ships are all taking the J&J obviously because they're not coming back to Port Canaveral anytime soon. But one of the challenges that we've had with J&J is it's got a very short shelf life. And we've got doses that have been committed, and if we don't get these vaccinations in people's arms by those dates, they're dead. The vaccinations expire. So it's a challenge with the cruise lines. We've made them all very, very aware that if you're committing a ship to a certain date and we're committing, 1,500 vaccinations to your brand, you better have your ships here because we don't want to be throwing vaccines in the trash. And we had one ship last week, the one we did 965 vaccinations on, that J&J was set to expire 2 days later. So we're helping get, already ordered vaccines in people's arms, and that's a good thing too. So there's a lot of benefit to what we're doing.
How many of the port staff is involved in the administering the vaccinations?
Nobody. We don't
Okay.
do
So
shots.
operation-
We watch.
The good people in the back.
The guys in the back do the shots. We just watch, take pictures, and talk about it.
Great.
Make sure it happens. Set up the facility, and what they've been doing is bringing them off the ship into the luggage hall, and all of the luggage tables are set up as vaccination tables, and they've got chairs, and people are coming in, and these guys know 965 vaccinations in a day. With the original target was to do 500 a day, and they did 2 days worth of vaccinations in about 8 hours. So it shows you that it's a very streamlined operation, both from the vaccinators side and the cruise ship side, to get everybody lined up and move through the process. So it's
You divide that by approximately 10 people given shots.
there's more.
Person gave. Oh, okay.
There's more people.
I was going to get
this isn't
I was
the whole
going to
team.
say each one's given a whole lot of shots in that period of time.
Yeah. And keep in mind, when they give the shots, then you go into your holding zone and you have to sit and wait for a little while. So it's to run the logistics on this and do a large scale operation of a lot of people is pretty good. But Cruise Terminal 1's been a great location. You know, the baggage haul in there is pretty large, and it really was a slick operation for these guys. So, any other questions on cruise? Last chance. All right, gonna roll on to cargo. Cargo, we're doing very well. We had 226 ship calls year to date, and cargo revenue is at 6.2 million, which is doing quite well, and our cargo tonnage has been strong at 2.9 million tons. Our slag volumes are strong. Mount Canaveral is back on the north side. It disappeared for a while, but it is back in place. And our April record was April was a record month for lumber. We had 40,000 bundles of lumber discharged in Port Canaveral. I'm going to dispel a rumor that somebody told me about yesterday, that lumber prices are rising in Lowe's and Home Depot and all the lumber yards because Port Canaveral is hoarding lumber. We're not hoarding lumber. We're moving it through here as quick as we can. And it's kind of funny, but if you go to every terminal in this port right now, you got stacks of lumber. But we had 3 lumber ships in one day last month. So it's coming in. Most of it's from Europe. All of it's from Europe. And it's been one of our biggest commodities through this whole down cycle with the construction boom in Orlando. Hapag-Lloyd continues the reflag of its ships. The second one is here today. The Alcarge is being reflagged to the Colorado Express. So if you drive out to Jetty Park or the boat ramps and you see this big cargo ship with containers on board at Cruise Terminal 3, that's Hapag-Lloyd. They've got 3 more ships to do after this. Next one's in about 2 weeks, and they'll be finished in August. So exciting time. And we did a plaque and key ceremony on the first ship with the American crew once the ship was handed over to the U.S. flag. So
And are the crews on those are vaccinated also?
They are, yeah. They're all Americans on board, and they're all vaccinated. And you know, and as I said, the message here is we have shots right behind that wall. So anybody that needs it, come in, and we'll get you shot, and you get a sticker. Okay. So the sticker's important. The sticker's worth getting the shot. Okay.
On our bumper on the car. Yeah, right.
They're giving away $1 million in Ohio. We're giving stickers.
Stickers.
Okay. All right. So we've had a lot of media attention. We had NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt out here a week ago, and I'm sure a lot of folks watched that. But we were highlighted with Christine Duffy, president of Carnival Cruise Line, on the evening news. We also had a Fox Business News update with Neil Cavuto earlier this month, and about returning to cruise and what we're doing to get it started, which was good. Our social media engagement is really, you know, we're able to track so much now and learn who's looking at things. And we had 586,000 people reached on this Artemis moon rocket that arrives at the port. It actually transited the port. It came in, went through the barge canal, and up to the dock at the Kennedy Space Center. So it was one of these things you looked out one day and there was this big tube rolling through the port, but our guys got the pictures of it and posted it, and it's been quite a hit on social media. We're still the #1 liked and followed port on Facebook too. On government relations side, I'll go through this quickly, and if you have any questions, please stop me. The regular session concluded on Friday, April 30th. 3,096 bills were filed, 275 successfully passed. I can say that, you know, following Florida politics, this was probably the craziest year ever in Tallahassee. It was, you know, it's always a special time during the legislative session, but this year was beyond special, and things were happening right up until the 11th hour of the final day, and it was crazy. Good news, our priorities, marina evacuations bill, it was sponsored by Representative Placencia and Senator Wright, passed. It waits the governor's signature now. It requires vessels under 500 gross tons to evacuate port ahead of heavy weather. That helps solve some of our issues with marina tenants that don't want to leave, or customers of the tenants that don't want to leave. So we now have some legal authority over them that's beyond what we had before. We also had operation and safety of motor vehicles and vessels. That's the Fish and Wildlife Agency's package that was sponsored by Representative Soroy and Senator Hudson. That passed, awaiting the governor's signature. In that bill, it strengthens and improves derelict vessel statutes to get them out when they're derelict. And it also has that federal language incorporated into the state law on allowing safety zones during space asset recoveries. And as you recall, when SpaceX landed their first Dragon in the manned Dragon in the Gulf of Mexico, it was surrounded by private boats who are in there and hindering the recovery operations. And the idea here is that it'll stop that from happening in the future, and we'll have safety zones around these manned spacecraft when they come back for the safety of the everyone involved, especially the astronauts. We also had state preemption of seaport regulations. That was Senator Boyd and Representative Roach. It died in the final days during the floor. It was a standalone bill, but in the last hours, Boyd had an amendment to Transportation Bill, Senate Bill 578. I guess the Boyd amendment filed by Senator Hooper passed, and it awaits the governor's signature. So that whole preemption bill is back in the language of a different bill. It's language that, you know, we opposed it, of course, from the very beginning, and it's there now. It prohibits a local ballot initiative or referendum from restricting maritime commerce at all Florida seaports. What happened is it was whittled down to just Key West, and that was the final bill, and then it was expanded back to all Florida ports, and that's what killed the bill initially, and then they went and fine-tuned the language, and it showed back up in another bill. So that is awaiting governor's signature at this point, and there's a large media initiative out of Key West to try and get the governor to line item veto that. So,
Or there'll be a lawsuit following.
Yeah, there'll be a lawsuit for sure. And to be honest with you, Commissioner, it should have been a lawsuit all along and not gone to the state legislature to govern. It should have been settled in the courts, not at the legislative level. That's my view anyway. For the Florida 21-22 budget, that was passed, not yet presented to the governor. It fully funds FDOT's 5-year work plan, which, you know, 528 is in that, as our 401 bridge has some skin in that game too. 122.6 million for seaport projects and programs is included in that language. 7 billion in federal relief funds is included in the budget. 250 million for seaport relief can be used for budget stabilization, and that's yet to be addressed. The governor has 15 days to sign this into law after he receives it. I do not know the current status of today, but I don't know if we're day 5 or day 10.
He hasn't received it.
He hasn't received it yet. So there we go. Okay. On the federal side, the Alaska Tourism Recovery Act was a bill that was filed that temporarily exempts Alaska cruises from the Passenger Vessel Services Act, PVSA, and it allows them to bypass Canadian cruise ships through Canadian cruise ports until February of 2022. What this act is, it originated in the late 1800s and it's evolved over the years. But basically, if you get on a cruise ship in the United States, you don't have cruises to nowhere. You don't get on Port Canaveral, go out to sea, except for Victory cruises. They're American flag, so it's different. But a foreign flag ship can't leave the United States, go offshore, spend a day, 2 days, whatever, come back into the same port. They have to have a foreign port in between. If it's an internationally registered vessel. If it's American flag, you can do the day cruises. So to go to Alaska, if you sail out of Seattle, you have to go to Canada under the law. And usually that's a small port call. It might be in Victoria, it might be Vancouver, one of the ports on the west coast, Pacific Northwest. And some of the cruises even originate out of Canada to go to Alaska to solve that issue as well. So when Canada announced that they were going to have a moratorium on cruise ships in international waters of Canada until February of 2022, it killed the Alaskan season for all practical purposes unless our government did something to override that. So Senator Murkowski and Sullivan and U.S. Representative Don Young sponsored the bills, passed the Senate and the House last week, and it was signed by the President yesterday. It allows cruises to resume between Washington and Alaska without requiring that foreign port visit. And immediately, even before the President signed it, all indications were he was going to sign it, and the cruise lines have already announced sailings beginning in July. This is good news for the industry. We have another nation that's trying to stop our commerce going between 2 states. So our government found a positive solution in getting our industry back up and running and helping those communities up in Alaska that desperately need the cruise industry this year. I do want to highlight, Commissioner Hadaway had a great article in the newspaper a few weeks ago about our Junior Ambassador Program. I just want to highlight that applications are available online. June 3rd is the deadline. We're really excited to get this program up and running. It's been kind of an off year for the past year with the school systems, and And we trying to really get this promoted. We're going to put some stuff out on our Facebook page today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight it. It's open to the public, private high school sophomores and juniors in Brevard County. Commissioner Hathaway, would you like to add anything?
Also open to homeschool. We had one homeschool student in our first year, and spread the word to young people. You know, where applications are a little lower than we had hoped they would be at this point. But we're excited to get them out here, and I appreciate all the port partners that have reached out to me and offered to sponsor meals for the kids and cover some of those expenses, because we are doing this on no budget. So
it's a great program.
thank you.
It extends our reach into the community and lets people know that there's more than just cruise ships at Port Canaveral. We do a lot of different things here, and it's a great opportunity for kids to get out here and realize that, you know, there's diving jobs, welding jobs, pilots, you know, there's all kinds of things that nobody even thinks about, and it's a great opportunity to expose our port to a next generation. So
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
Who?
Yeah, we
Coast
try to
Guard?
feature military, hospitality, recreation, engineering, the space program, maritime. So each of the sectors that intersect here at Port Canaveral. And also to be clear, if you are involved with the Propeller Club, kids in the Helm program can participate in both programs. Would look great on a resume. So we would love to have those kids as well.
It's great. All right. Well, thank you. And if there's any other information we can do to help promote it, let us know. We're here to help. And we're not the government. Well, I guess we are. Okay. We also have our 10th annual fireworks scheduled for July 2nd. It's Exploration Tower Lawn. Along those lines, let's see. Nope, let me come back. And we are, I think I've got a recreation slide coming up, and I'll touch base on a couple of other things. IT update. I want to share that our IT team has been very, very busy this past year. And if any of you have ever migrated from one core software application to another for an enterprise, it's not an easy transition. And I just want to give a shout out to these guys that they have transitioned this whole organization from our old server-based system here in the building to the Microsoft Teams platform, which is a cloud-based platform. It enables virtual meetings, live events, internet calling and chat. It simplifies file sharing. Instead of having all of our files parked on a server here that if you're outside the office, you have to sign into a virtual private network to get to that file. Now they're all in the cloud. Wherever you go, wherever you are, everything's available to you. And it's a big transition. As you see, they moved 1.8 million files to the SharePoint as part of Teams SharePoint to enable secure and simplified access any device anywhere. So if you're in a hotel in Genoa, think of the day that you can do that again, and you dial into your computer, you can access any file that you have access to here in the office. It's a great application. We've really used it. We're doing a lot of our communications, even when we're all sitting in the office. Sometimes we'll just do a Teams call because it's so easy. You just push the person's name and boop, the picture pops up, and you might be in two ends of the office at the same time, and it's a great system. We've got Teams Cloud Voice coming in June next month, and that's going to replace all of our phones. So you won't have the phone desk, the phone set sitting on your desk anymore. It's all going to be through Teams. So great application. Shout out again to the IT team that's gotten this thing rolled out in the last 12 months. So it also allows us enhanced cybersecurity in tune with single sign-on and two-factor authentication. That's another aspect of Teams that's much more secure than what we were working off our own server. So thanks again, guys. It's great to get that out, and I think we're like 99% there now. On a recreation update, tent camping returned on April 30th at Jetty Park. We've started extending the hours back to 9 p.m. and we're returning to pre-COVID operating status. So everything's up and running at Jetty Park again. On special events, we've got our outdoor event guidelines have been updated to reflect latest CDC guidance, no masks are required, and our indoor event guidelines are being updated. They'll be published shortly. As you are all aware, we've kind of rolled back on all of our terminals, turned up the temperature and everything else. So there's a cost associated with bringing these terminals back online, and we'd kind of like to see some cruise revenue before we open everything up and start incurring expenses again. But it's coming, and we'll have those guidelines updated shortly. So, environmental update. This is the Bob Musser slide. very busy slide on the right-hand side. So it's Keep of Our beautiful summer series cleanup is underway, working throughout the port, harbor, litter removal, the tube collection, also getting rid of the Brazilian pepper and other invasive species. Sea turtle nesting season is officially underway and concludes on October 31st. We're participating in virtual and interactive Green Marine Environmental Conference on June 2nd to the 4th. I do want to make a side comment here. You know, we get a lot of community feedback on different things, and we had someone complaining after May 1st about one of the ships offshore that the lights were too bright and it was bothering them in their condo on the beach. And of course we responded, why are your windows open during turtle season? You should be blacked out anyway, so you shouldn't see those lights. Anyway, it's some of the things we have to deal with. Engineering update, I'm not going to do this. Bill, I'm passing it to you.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Captain Murray. Although I know that you've heard this brief so many times, you could gladly do it. But it's my pleasure and it's an honor to get up here before you and give you this engineering update, and especially on the heels of the great news that Captain Murray shared. These are a few projects that myself, my team, and all of us here at the port are very excited about. Starting with this first one, this is Cruise Terminal number 5, additional mooring improvements. This is item 1A on the agenda today, on the consent agenda. And we are recommending award to local partner Rush Marine, LLC out of Titusville. We received 4 bids for this project. And I want to share a few things about it. As you see here, it's not a $30 million or $40 million project. It's got a modest budget, I'll say, at $2.3 million. The engineer's estimate was roughly $2 million. Our internal estimate and what we published with the bid document was $2.6 million. So we were very pleased to see the bids come in a good range, but certainly the low bid being within the range that we had predicted. So this project, although it's in the $2 million range, it has components, pipe piles, concrete bollards, and fenders that are commensurate with a much larger project. So we put in some pre-qualification items, and we were certainly glad to see a heavy civil, heavy marine contractor come in at the low bid as compared to building a marina that might have a similar total value of project, but not deal with the same large size of components from a civil perspective. So the low bid that you see right there is the $2.258 million. That is item 1A on the agenda today. The high bid came in at just over $3 million. And we have our favorite substantial completion date is reoccurring once again. It's April 1st. It's not lost on me what that date is. It just magically works out on many of our projects that April 1st of 2022 is our substantial completion date. Final completion, we give them about a month later, about 30 days. We'll be wrapped up in May. And the beauty of this project, it is minor improvements. So as you look to the lower diagram, you'll see a very large mooring dolphin platform that's fed by a catwalk out to it. And then we're installing 2 of these monopile mooring dolphins that you see in the photo. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the length overall capacity of berthing a vessel at this terminal beyond what Cruise Terminal 5 can accommodate today. So it happens to be one of our smaller terminals, and this is a great first step in a realization of what the future of Cruise Terminal 5 could mean for us here at the port, and specifically the cruise industry.
And what size ship can be there?
So
Once this is completed?
yeah, the vessel design that we use is one that's commonly seen here at the port, and it is the Mariner of the Seas. So that was the design vessel we used for mooring this vessel, or for doing this this analysis. But that is approximately a 3,500 passenger ship, 3,500 to 3,800 passenger ship.
Okay.
Bill, is this project something that's dependent on somebody being there or not being there, or can it be done in spite of somebody being there? Is it affected by the schedule? This is my real question.
So a very good question, and certainly as cruising comes back, that's going to be something that we have to work with our contractor on, is if there's a vessel at port, a vessel at Cruise Terminal 5, we won't be able to do work there. We won't be able to drive piles, have a pile driving rig, which is largely a barge mounted rig. So we will not be able to do work when the ship is in port. There'll be a lot of coordination with cruise lines. And further to that point, as we look at cruise terminal number 5, there's a lot of lines that are interested in it. As you recall, the legacy use of cruise terminal 5 was Carnival. Carnival now is using 6 and 3, so 5 is on the market. And I want to highlight Dave German and his cruise business development department of 2 now that is making great strides in marketing this terminal to multiple lines. And so there's a lot of excitement built up there. So certainly I am also pleased that we have a great partner that has done a lot of work here in the port, is used to working around active terminals. Rush did the expansion for CT 8 and 10, did the expansion for 3, and even their leadership goes back to Cruise Terminal 1 work back in 2014. So yes, to answer your point, long story long, there will be a lot of coordination with what we are anticipating is going to be a very active terminal moving forward.
Okay.
Next project is Cruise Terminal 8, what we're calling Phase 2 landside modifications. So as you recall, we've been working on Cruise Terminal 8 for some time for Disney Cruise Lines. We've had a very successful project finished with PCL Hurd construction team, and I want to highlight their performance on this project. They've been a pleasure to work with, and their project came to a close. April 6th was the date of demobilization, so all of their trailer, their personnel, the porta-johns, the dumpsters, everything was demobilized. And as we have started to see the promise of the return of cruising come back, we began discussions with Disney Cruise Line on the deferred work that we, if you recall, deferred at the onset of the pandemic. So that commercial agreement with Disney is a $46.5 million improvement package spread over 8 and 10. We focused predominantly on Terminal 8, but we had deferred about $6.2 million worth of work. That work included concierge space expansion. It included the outside luggage screening facility, a separate building that we had deferred, and a host of other like general conditions costs and insurances costs that went along with that brick and mortar work. All of that package was deferred to the tune of about $6.2 million. So we find ourselves now, and this is my item 1B on the agenda, in a situation where we want to bring some of this deferred work back. The method that we're using to bring a small part of this work back is a standalone bid package, and that is Cruise Terminal 8 Phase 2. Our advertised budget is about $3 million. We checked yesterday and we had 30-some vendors already registered. Not all of them are prime contractors or general contractors. There's a lot of vendors and subcontractors in that number as well. But that $3 million cost it's just a good fit for a lot of the more local Brevard County and Central Florida sized contractors, and we're really grateful to see their interest in this project. The photo on the right is an example of that expanded concierge space that's going to be brought back. And there's other miscellaneous work. This is a piece of millwork that you'll see either in the security area or down around the bus drop-off loop. So there's just odds and end pieces in this terminal renovation program that we've been working closely with Disney on and our architect, BEA, to bring these back in this one standalone package. Responses are due June 16th at 2 p.m. We have a couple of pre-bid walkthroughs scheduled June 1st and June 9th. And then we have a selection committee meeting, I believe is scheduled for June 19th is the date for the three-person selection committee meeting that will evaluate the bids, the schedules, and the contractor qualifications. And then we'll bring it back for your award if you choose on June 30th, at the June 30th meeting. And it's a quick turnaround project. December 31st is our substantial completion date, and then March 1st is final completion on that project. And again, the work includes some further expansion to the CBP area, not expansion as far as walls and square footage, but expansion as far as technology. So improved camera coverage, access control coverage for the CBP area, the expanded concierge space that I just mentioned, and then an additional pierside restrooms. The restrooms were actually built roughed in with phase 1 of this project, and we're going to go in and do the interior finishes and install all the fixtures in those pierside, much needed male, female pierside restrooms. So item 1B on the agenda today is a deductive change order from the existing PCL Hurd contract for phase 1. We had offer and acceptance by them once upon a time that included that $6.2 million of deferred work. We gave them a limited notice to proceed of about $24 million, and this dates back to about a year ago. That $24 million of work has been completed. We want to rescind that offer of the $6.2 million because part of that, the concierge space, is a part of our current bid package. Let me know if you have any questions on either one of those cruise-related projects, but certainly we're glad to see those coming back to life. And on the cargo side and the tenant side, I have a couple of project highlights here. North Cargo Berth 3, we continue to make progress on that. We got the final agreement from that PIDP grant with Marriott. That project is going to be advertised in the month of July and August. We'll receive bids in September and award at the September 29th commission meeting. So that is currently budgeted as a $37 million predominantly Marine Works project. It's got some lighting and security camera upgrades that go along with it as well. Last but not least is we're wrapping up the Atlantis building roof repair replacement project behind us. We found some additional deteriorated steel in the loading dock, so we're just wrapping that up, and we'll bring that before you for closeout in the very near future. So thank you. That is my brief. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill. I just want to finish up and make a couple of comments that kind of dovetails what Bill has been doing. We've had a lot of time. You know, one of the upsides of the pandemic is we've had a lot of downtime away from normal operations to think about future and what we need to be doing here at the port, and some studies about what our future might be. And I had Bill run an exercise and say, okay, if we had a plot of land identified for our next cruise terminal, what's the timeline if we said go today, when could we have it online? It'd be 2025. So you're looking at 4 years to build the next facility from the time you start reviewing it, getting the initial surveys done, permits, everything. So it's a 4-year lead time. And we used the CT3 example to map a different option somewhere else. So with that in mind, we've got 6 terminals. We've got 6 great terminals. But historically, you know, the cruise industry is great on blocking their competitors from berth access, and by putting in funny schedules that might take up 2 days a week instead of 1 day a week, and you're only got one sailing a week. Or I'll give you an example, like a 6-day and an 8-day sailing. That takes up a Saturday and a Sunday, and you only have one ship a week. So some of these creative ways that they've had in the past to lock up berth space, we're going to start pushing back on some of that. We got 6 terminals, and we need to look at yield management, and are we getting the most return on our investment? And we've invested a ton of money in the sport. So it's going to be a little bit different. And with the down cycle, nobody's got a schedule right now. So everybody's coming back, and you know, we're not interested in you know, put this message out because people are going to hear it, in blocking out a terminal dock for 3 days a week for a very small ship that doesn't bring appropriate revenue to the port. So I think we're in a position, there's a ton of new tonnage coming out, a lot of new ships. The port infrastructure is very rare. Cruise lines have never sailed like Tuesday to Tuesday. They're gonna have to start looking at that just to accommodate the number of ships that are on the berth coming out. So it's been a good time to take a look at it, and I think coming back, we need to come back stronger than we were when we left, and that's our goal. And we've had a lot of time to think about that, and you know, hoping that soon we can stand up here and present some very positive feedback to you.
John, within reason, what's the maximum number of terminals we could have here?
You know, it depends how many tenants you want to throw out. We don't want to do that.
That's in the
you know,
future.
The great thing about Port Canaveral is we have a host of tenants. We have great relationships with most of them, and you know, it's a matter now of maybe moving some pieces around to better utilize what we have. I've got another project that Bill hasn't reported on yet, but I'll share with it. On the north side, we've got a large retention pond up there that covers maybe half of the total space that's on the north side. And you know, when we did Cruise Terminal 3, we did this expensive underground vault system, but said, what if we did an underground vault system on the north side, got rid of the pond altogether? How much acreage would we pick up? Because if we expand anything else on the north side, we got to make the pond bigger. So we're looking at that right now. That acreage would be invaluable to this port because we just can't expand anymore. So why would we want to give it up to a lake in the middle of it? So we're going to be coming back to you when times return with some pretty big ideas and some things like that to get better utilization and more revenue per acre out of our port. So.
No, it all sounds good. One question that you might have answered just and I missed it because you said a lot, but the governor's money, that roughly when the distribution hopefully gonna hit us, because it's tied specifically, as you know, it's tied to our ability to get Bill working again.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we don't know when the distribution will be. It could be end of June or July sometime. We have one of our agenda items today is a resolution that whenever that happens, if we don't want to call everybody back to accept the money, just have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. So that'll allow us to proceed whenever it does happen. I don't have a timeline right now. It's wrapped up in the bill that is yet to go to the governor. But yeah, is a formula. Treasury issued guidance on how that money is to be, what you have to do to qualify for the money. Good news is we qualify on all counts, so we're in good shape there. But you know, it's still a process to go through, and it's at the state level right now. And they just had a very, very difficult legislative session, so I think they're all taking a breather right now since they just finished the gambling thing. So,
okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? This is a sign that the Royal Explorer of the Seas had on their gangway last week, which I thought was very appropriate. Welcome back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Poole, financial update. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Quick report here. We're going to be reporting on 7 months of our data, so from October through April. I always give a snapshot on what the month of April looked like just on its own. And revenues by themselves were $2.2 million for the month of April of 2021. That is $236,000 above budget. Cruise, cargo, and recreation for the month were all above budget. The only line item, revenue line item that was not was leases, and that's related to the logistics center. When we sold that, recognized the gain on that sale, we had a couple tenants in there that were paying us lease payments, so we'll be under budget in that line item for the rest of the year. On the expense side of the house, it was $2.8 million. That $2.8 million is $175,000 or 6% below budget. It's also $433,000 below prior year. So this month it was $2.8 million versus $3.2 million when you compare it to April of 2020.
Okay.
Now operating revenues as a whole, $15.3 million is $973,000 above budget. Now we'll go in and look at the various components of that. Cruise revenues by themselves are $1.5 million. That's $169,000. I say it's just, you know, on budget there. The two main drivers there for the you know, the 7 months that we experienced here, the month of April was similar to the previous 6 months on cruise. For the month itself, Disney had 5 calls related to their ships, the Dream and the Fantasy, and then we had Victory Casino as well, contributing about 50% each on the monthly cruise revenues. If you recall, we budgeted cruise activity at the amended budget in January to restart in July, excuse me. We had revenue passengers coming back at about 50% capacity in July. In January, we thought simulated or test sailings would happen in the May-June timeframe. Revenue passengers at about 50% capacity starting in July and in August and September. So as you heard from Captain Murray's report, it looks like that schedule is slid a couple months to the right. It looks like our simulated sailings will be in the July timeframe. So revenue passengers for us will be in the August or September timeframe. So
You're being conservative. Maybe July. I'm still holding for July.
okay, okay. So maybe we were dead on in January.
This prompts a random question. Normally we get paid based upon passenger movements. If they're non-revenue, does that also affect our revenue of those test ships?
Yeah, we would just receive like dockage and harbor master fees and line handling, everything but passenger fees, wharfage fees.
Thank you.
So, yes. So, you know, that's at this point, we're not requesting to do any type of budget amendment because it's just too preliminary at this point. And I think in addition to any federal funding that we might receive, that we believe we will receive in the June to July timeframe, we think any budget amendment, really we ought to just take it up in the October timeframe after the year is over, and we'll just clean up everything on the revenue side and on the expense side. Now on cargo revenues, John mentioned it, $6.2 million. You see the various components there in the upper right. And that $6.2 million is $158,000 above budget. So that's a positive revenue variance there. That's as a result of 2.9 million tons of cargo moving across our docks. Now that 2.9 million, if you compare it to 7 months of last year, is 163,000 or 5% below where we were last year. And the main reason on why we're down is, if you look at the bottom line there, fuel, petroleum. Last year, we had 6 good months, and then the month of April happened of last year. And so this year we've had 6 months of reduced activity on fuel, but it's mainly related to jet fuel. But that offset of about $370,000 or reduction in fuel is being offset by the lumber and slag increases. So if you look up top there, slag by itself is significantly up, lumber is as well. You combine those two line items, those two by themselves it's a 300,000 ton increase year over year. And I put this down here just for the month of April by itself. I wanted to see things returning more to normal this year versus things slowing down last year. If you look just at petroleum, April of this year, April of last year, this month of April, we're actually 42,000 tons higher, or 18% higher. So that shows you that, you know, fuel is picking back up, jet fuel is starting to pick back up as well. So these are all positive trends. On the non-ship revenues, you'll see at 7.6 million, that's above budget by 646,000. One of those components is leases, and at 7 months into the year, we're still 61,000 above budget. Jetty Park, strong numbers, above budget by $390,000. Miscellaneous ground transportation, that's below prior year, related to the cruise industry. Summing it all up here, you'll see even all the line items, including leases, all of them are above budget. If you look at that far right column, cruise total revenues of 15.3 million are 6.8% above budget. Now transitioning to expenses, this one slide shows you at 20.2 million, we're 5.9% budget. All 14 departments are staying within or under their budget. Total cash operating expenses at 20.2 million. That's 1.3 million below budget, as we stated on the previous slide. Compared to prior year, it's 8.7 million below prior year. And the main drivers on the savings there are the same 3 components that we've had the previous 6 months: service contracts, maintenance, and salaries, all contributing to being below budget and below prior year. Now, what does that mean? When you roll it all up, 7 months into our year, operating revenues at 15.3 million, expenses are 20.2. That generates a loss of 4.9 million. When you combine that with our interest expense on our debt that we budget for, that requires a net position appropriation of $12.2 million to generate a break-even standpoint. Depreciation, $25.9 million. And when you combine that depreciation with the non-op revenues of 3.1 million, the majority of that being the gain on the sale of the logistics center, that results in a change in net position of 23 million. Change in net position, it's a reduction in your retained earnings of 23 million. That's it for my presentation. If there's any questions on the income statement, on the balance sheet, or on Pat's reports that she has in there, we would request approval on all those reports, or if there's any questions first.
Do you want to give a brief intro into your agenda item? And then I want to warn you that we're having a technical issue and we can't pull it up on Granicus and it's not on the website. So I've asked Mr. Beislein to read it into the record when the time is appropriate, just to let you know that's coming, and if you want to explain it before then.
You're not able to see which item, the resolution?
Resolution.
The agenda
Your agenda item.
Okay.
So if you want to explain that just for the record, and then we're going to actually read it in since it's not showing up
Okay.
on the agenda.
Harold, you ready?
We don't have to do it. I don't know if we are supposed to do it now, but I just wanted to let you know why I was going to pull it.
Okay.
Oh, when the time comes. Item number,
Okay, maybe we'll pull it and we'll read it at that time.
A, that's what you're talking
That's
about.
what I'm saying. I'm going to pull it, and I don't want you to. I want you to know why.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so item 2A, it's a good news story. This is the, as John indicated, the federal money that was allocated through the state and then through the legislative process to DOT. We're going to be allocated funds for budget stabilization. And the grant agreement that we're going to be required to execute needs a board resolution authorizing the CEO to execute that agreement. Now, the agreement, normally when we bring a resolution to the board, it references the grant number. It references how much we're going to receive. It references if there's any matching requirements. Is the state giving us $3 million and we have to match that on a 50-50 basis? With a similar $3 million. This is very broad. I've discussed this with DOT, and it checks the box that we need to accept these funds, but it doesn't reference a grant number because we don't have the grant yet. So, and I'm not exactly sure on the dollar amount. I have a good idea, but at this point, we haven't received the grant. We haven't received the dollar amount, but the resolution speaks to the origin of the funds and for us to receive it. And as John indicated, we're going to look to receive it in the June to July timeframe. And if it came in July, we did not want to, at this point, there is no board meeting scheduled for July. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Then I will move to approve the financial reports for April 2021, including the statistical report, aging report, list of bills, attorney's fees, and commissioner expenses.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me say on the aging report, I've never seen so many zeros in all three columns. It's great to see it that way. Pat, thank you for you and your crew keeping it all up to date and everybody
you.
paying.
Sounds great. Okay, any public comment on the consent agenda? There is none. Okay, let's see if we want to pull any of these. This Commissioner Michael.
I believe I'm going to pull the same.
2A.
Yes, 2A.
Okay, so 2A is pulled. You're good. I'm good.
I have none to pull,
Thank you.
other than since they pulled that one.
Yep, I have none.
No.
I just had 2A to make sure
Okay.
we get it on the record.
Okay, request a motion for approval of consent agenda items 1A, 1B, and 3A alpha.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye. 5-0. Okay, 2A is pulled, and Commissioner Lloyd, go ahead if you have any questions beside what we're about to do here.
I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Hadaway.
I don't have any questions. I just want to make sure it's preserved on the record since it's not showing up in the agenda packet. And so I'll ask Mr. Beislein to read it into the record.
Please.
Ready? Okay. Canal Port Authority, resolution number RES-2021-003-EXE-3. Resolution of the Canaveral Port Authority, Brevard County, Florida, authorizing the execution of a grant agreement between the Florida Department of Transportation and the Canaveral Port Authority. Whereas the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 has provided emergency funding for eligible state, local, territorial, and tribal governments, which may be used to fill revenue shortfalls among these governments and support the communities and population hardest hit by the COVID-19 crisis. And whereas the state of Florida has received its first allocated share of the federal funding and the Florida Legislature has appropriated to the Florida Department of Transportation funds for grants for port operations to Florida ports as defined in Section 311.09 Florida statutes, with cruise ship or cargo traffic that was impacted by COVID-19. And whereas the Canaveral Port Authority has been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, which has resulted in a reduction of revenue. And whereas the execution of a grant agreement is required in order for the CPA to receive grant funds from FDOT. Now therefore be it resolved by the Canaveral Port Authority, Section 1, CPA confirms its desire to enter into a grant agreement with the FDOT. Section 2, the chairman of the board or vice chairman is herein authorized to execute this resolution on behalf of the CPA. Section 3, the chief executive officer, chief financial officer, and the senior director of finance are herein specifically authorized to enter into and sign any such documents as may be necessary, including the grant agreement and any amendment to the grant agreement for the purpose of scope changes, funding adjustments, contract duration changes, additional financial project numbers, as well as execute assurances, certifications, and all other documents as may be required. Section 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. Approved and adopted this 26th day of May, 2021. Canaveral Port Authority. Wayne Justice, Chairman. Robin Hathaway, Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't want anything to come between us and that money. Subject to that, I'll move to approve item 2A.
Second.
We have discussion, some discussion.
Discussion.
When I was meeting with John in my briefing, I kind of, this money it's taken a lot of hard work from, I think, our staff primarily and our lobbyists primarily in Washington and the state level to make it known that we never got anything up front and there was a gap in our financing. And so I'd like to challenge the cruise lines down the road. I think they haven't done a great job of getting the word out there and making sure that they have a good lobbying presence in Washington and at the state level. So I think a lot of that fell on John's shoulders and our staff's shoulders to prove that, look, there's a gap here, and here's what the gap is. And so he's been very vocal, not only in the media, but also through our lobbyists in Washington and Tallahassee. So good job, John. This is part of the leadership that I appreciate about John, is he's definitely being proactive and going after our community's best interest and the port's best interest. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Great.
that's a great point.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Okay, that wraps up the consent item. I'm sorry, oh, we didn't vote. Yeah, okay. All in favor of approving 2A?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, that wraps up the consent agenda. We have one public comment from Victory Casino. We're going to pass it off to Shirley's name's on here, but Lester's in the crowd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will relinquish my 3 minutes to CEO Lester.
We look forward to it. Good morning, Lester.
Good morning. How are you?
Better now.
So am I. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Public, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment. I was going to have Shirley do it, and I got freed up to be able to get here, and I appreciate being here. A couple of things I just wanted to bring you up to date. So, day after tomorrow, we will have been open exactly 1 year since closing for COVID. And we ran every single day. We do a 5-day week now during our COVID concerns, but we never missed a cruise. So we've carried almost 120,000 passengers during a COVID pandemic. You cannot track a COVID outbreak to our ship. No passengers were infected on our ship. So my staff did a great job. I think it helped keep 300 Brevard County residents employed for a year. We're not on the aging report. We pay twice a week, no matter what. And I just wanted you guys to know, to think about that. In 48 hours, we have been doing this for a year. And as things start reopening, I just wanted you guys to know, In July, we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary of being open here in Port Canaveral. And so I'd just like to thank you for your support, for the public support. And I think we did a great job. Our staff did a great job keeping a bunch of people employed. And maybe the big cruise lines we could have helped them. But I just wanted you to get that little update because it's quite a milestone for us, 120,000 passengers in a year. So.
That's a great job. That's fantastic.
All right. Great. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing leadership that the steps you took early on in the pandemic, both to monitor your staff and your guests, and even being the first one here at the port to start providing vaccines. I think you've shown extraordinary leadership through a really hard time, and great job.
We're about 75%. Thank you. We're about 75% vaccinated. There's a minority of employees that think that they got their MDs from the internet, so we're working through that issue. But when you get to that 75% vaccinated, it's pretty safe, even more safe than it is now. We notice a lot of our customers are proud to come up and say, I'm vaccinated. We are still under mandate from the Biden administration to wear masks on our ship. And so until that is rescinded by the federal government, we will continue masking on our ship. But thank you for that. We also, when we did, we teamed up with Rockledge General Hospital, Rockledge Regional. They came over to the port, did all of our employees, did 40 of the Canaveral Port Authority employees as well. So, and several of employees from different restaurants locally. So it was a community effort. Everybody came together and we got them all vaccinated.
Lester, are you still now doing the same routine and precaution that you were almost a year ago?
Yeah, we have done a minor adjustment, but I will tell you that almost everything we do, the plastic dividers, we take temperature checks, everything we do, we still maintain to this day. And I think that our customer appreciate that we continue to do it. Until I'm sure that we're safer, I like the fact that you can't trace an outbreak to the boat. I mean, you think about this, you see on TV for a year, oh my gosh, people are on the beach and everybody's going crazy. You can do this. If you really just pay attention, you can do this.
Well, I think you're a shining star. The fact that businesses are going to work hard to protect their clientele, and I think the cruise lines will do the same. That's
so too.
where your revenue comes from. You're going
Right.
to do everything you can
Sure.
to preserve it, and I think you're a good example of a business doing that.
But I appreciate all your help. Thank you very much, guys, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Markey.
Yes, I was invited last Friday, actually, in my capacity as commissioner, to become a stakeholder in a Merritt Island Redevelopment Agency evaluation. I guess they're contemplating a project, and I wonder if maybe if staff knows anything about it, that they're contemplating a 5-mile bike loop that's supposed to be proximal to the barge canal. News?
That could be associated with the 528 widening project,
Okay.
or is on which would be District 5 of FDOT. Right-of-way funding in 2027, construction funding has not been determined yet. But unless that would be on the north side of the barge canal.
Yeah, I got zero details. I was just in the office for another purpose, and I happen to know that the land development manager, Cynthia Thurman, who I invite all of you to contact if you have any interest on further detail. I need to do so myself, obviously, but
Yeah, please request a plan. We'd be glad to take a look at it. I know that Bob Musser and Veronica Narvaez-Lugar are both involved in the Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, that's a part of the Space Coast TPO that does have a lot to do with the bike pedways as well. And the only one, to my knowledge, that would go along that 528 and barge canal corridor is associated with that long-term plan to widen 528 through
Okay.
FDOT District 5.
Sure.
But
But it's also a continuation through TPO of the rail trails with the bicycle that they're doing all over Florida. And I know it's in Titusville. I think it's going to go through the Space Center. Come up, maybe stay with it. I'm not for sure, but
it's all
look
over the
into
country. It's a great program.
528 and then to the city of Cape Canaveral.
Okay.
I mean, eventually, there'll be bicycle trails all over the state of Florida.
Certainly, we should know about it, and if it's a duplicate effort with what could be provided along the 528 corridor, then we would want to advise District 5 of that effort so that, we don't have duplicate trails in close proximity to each other.
I'll keep
I
you in the
think
loop as I learn more.
Fantastic.
Be approved by TPO.
Yes.
Anyway,
Thank you.
That's it for me.
Mr. Hadley, thanks.
I would just like to commend the organizers of the Cocoa Beach Power Boat races, was it Thunder on Cocoa Beach, this past weekend, and they invited me out to speak early Sunday morning to the racers before they went out. There had been a little incident, excuse me, with a couple of the newer guys who didn't understand port rules. So I was asked to come out and speak on behalf of the port and encourage them to follow our rules, and spoke with the sheriff's office a little bit about that. But 99% of the drivers out there were super appreciative to have someone come out and speak, and were very respectful of the rules and thanked us for the opportunity to be here. And the organizers took it all very, very seriously. And I checked in with John, and I appreciate them realizing our rules matter if they want to come back, and they did a great job. So appreciate it.
Thanks. Mr. Elmer.
just briefly, Mr. Chairman, just following through with some of the things that Commissioner Micah said. I want to commend the staff, John and his entire staff, hard workers during this period of time, and being proactive in the setting up of the vaccine clinics for the crew and everybody. It's great that we took that initiative. Commend Parish Medical Center for agreeing to be part of that vaccination program, and commend again John and his financial staff for working with the state to get as much money out of the federal funds that are supposed to trickle down as possible. And just the financial position in general. I think all in all, Port Canaveral, with the financial staff and all under John's leadership, that we've been, I'll say, very successful during the pandemic. We continue to make progress. Bill continues to do some construction stuff, so he doesn't sleep too much on the job. But everybody that's working for the port is working diligently in everything that's being done.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lloyd.
I just look forward to a normal summer and a great 4th of July, and hopefully we can all get back to normal and don't see any more masks very soon.
Amen. Just a few things on my part, really on that same line. I want to thank some of you in here, those of us who supported the Canaveral Port Ministry and their annual gala this last month, and there was 300 people at the Radisson at tables of 10 with minimal masks, and it was a wonderful event. Okay, and it was a great support for them. It's their annual fundraiser, and we appreciate. Actually, we sponsored it from our end as well, so that worked out well. Went to an EDC meeting in person. Again, same point. We had Captain Lanny, you here? We had the CAM, the Council of American Master Mariners, here at Port Canaveral. We gave a tour. I gave him a speech on the update. I think John talked to him. Yeah. You're alumni, right?
I'm a member.
Remember, yeah.
It's 87, so I've been a member for a few years.
Yeah. That group was here. I gave an update to the Cocoa City Council about the port, but really I was there for Med's birthday. Celebrated that over in Cocoa. Boat races. We had Maritime Day last Saturday. Got on a boat and put a wreath out. We had our luncheon at Rusty's, just like we do every year. It's pretty good, pretty exciting. Tomorrow, Civ Mill. Those of you leadership out in the port to go to Civ Mill. Civ Mill's back its first live meeting again tomorrow night. Amen. And then again, this Memorial Day weekend's huge. They're talking. The paper said 40,000. I can't believe it. 40,000 motorcycles in this county. The Rolling Thunder 3-day extravaganza. But the blessing of the bikes is Friday night here at the port. be part of that. And then they're going to have an all-day thing at the Veterans Memorial Center on Saturday, and then they're going to do a big ride. If you're on the beach on Sunday morning, I wouldn't be driving on the beach because they're doing a whole loop up the beach on Sunday morning on their way out of town. It's going to be quite a show.
And John, do you put on your white collar to do the blessing of the motorcycle?
I'm not doing the blessing.
Oh,
They got.
I think Mike Schwartz is doing that.
Yeah, they've got a chaplain with the crowd. The Rolling Thunder, of course, is it's missing in action and lost in action, or memorials, and POWs. And then, of course, Monday's Memorial Day. There's events all over town. It's kind of out of this angle here, but I remind everybody to go. And we'll be speaking at the Veterans Center, or we'll be speaking at in other different places around to memorialize that day. And that's all I have. Again, it's great to be on this path back to normal in 100 different ways here. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Our next meeting is...
Mr. Chairman, before
Please.
you wrap up, can I just have the podium for one more minute?
Please.
You know, last month I announced that our great friend Bobby G was retiring, and he did retire on May 3rd. But I wanted to introduce, for those of you that don't know, Dave German, so you've got a face to the name. And I'm going to ask David to come up, and I'd also like Marie Harrison to please come up. And David is one of the busiest guys in the room right now because he's dealing with all the cruise lines nonstop. So, David, you want to say?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chairman. As my good friend Bill Crow always says, it's a pleasure and honor to be up here in front of you today. I think he has a few other one-liners as well. But
he has music with his.
Yeah.
And then there's 30 minutes of talking.
Yeah. So Captain Murray asked me just now to come up here and introduce Miss Marie Harrison. So she has an interesting story. She was actually an intern with us pre-pandemic with Bobby G and I. She was on track to start with this last summer, and then unfortunately had to push it back because of obviously the pandemic. So this is day 3 for Marie. Now we hired her back, so she's going to be on board on the business development team and supporting us there. So it took me 16 years to get up here behind the podium. This is day 3 for her, so she's off to a really great start.
Let her move over so she can say something. This is her first day at the podium.
Honor and pleasure for me as well. We actually all have a picture together from my internship, so I treasure that. It's great to be here. I'm just very excited to be a part of this restart and help everyone out. I'm immediately impressed with the efforts the whole team is putting in, not just cruise business, everyone. It's great to see, and I'm, again, just really excited to be a part of it, so thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
So I'll just say Marie is a graduate of Massachusetts Maritime Academy. And when we weren't able to bring her down to employ her last year, she went to the School of Hard Knocks after graduation and worked as a ship superintendent at Port Newark Container Terminal. So doing the night shift and everything else. So I think she's hardened a little bit after that gig. So different person than we had last year. Anyway, thanks guys for coming up. And this is our cruise business development team right now. So if you see them around the port, you know who they are. And they're going to be very busy getting us started again. So thanks.
Okay, on that note, our next meeting is June 30th at 9 a.m. Look forward to seeing you all then. Have a great month.